Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Good to Great. This is the podcast for women wanting to take their health, mindset, and business from good to great. I'm your host, Ash. I'm an online women's health and fitness coach. You can find more out about my coaching over on my Instagram at coachby.ashmurph. But let's dive right into today's episode. Okay, guys, today we are talking all things discipline. I just felt really called to speak about this and do a podcast episode on it and share my thoughts, opinions, perspectives, because I think that there's a lot to talk about, basically. So, first of all, I also want to bring into this the idea of the masculine and feminine energies and having that balance as well. So we're going to dive straight into all of that. And I think the main kind of idea of today's episode is to really get you thinking and anchor back into what truly is discipline and what does that look like for me and my lifestyle and my goals, my vision, and am I happy with where I'm at right now, or do I possibly need some more discipline in my life? Because I truly believe that a lot of people are missing discipline in their life. It is not a strong enough force, and therefore it is not getting them the results that they are after. And there is so many people in our population stuck in these loops and these cycles of I want, I'm trying, I'm doing my best, and still wanting and not getting to reaching that end result that they so-called want. But if they were to implement a little more discipline into their day-to-day life, they actually would reach that versus ending up cycling back and going back to square one and repeating the same cycle, the same loop. All by just implementing a little bit of discipline, we can break that cycle. I'm going to go into my own experience with this because I feel as though the last 12 or so months, I experienced this myself, where I previously had a lot of discipline and it was very much extreme. So to an all or nothing kind of mindset, if you will. And in many aspects of my life, I had this level of discipline with my training, my nutrition. You know, I would go into a deficit and I would not eat a single meal off my plan. I would genuinely eat from breakfast to dinner, snacks, whatever it was, everything weighed to the gram, measured out to the milliliter for 12 weeks at a time, like nonstop, back to back. I think in my deficit, just over 12 months ago now, I lost about 10 kilos over 12, 13 weeks. And in that 12 to 13 weeks, I had maybe 4 meals in 12 weeks that weren't part of my plan given to me by my coach, which is too extreme because then I've come out the other end of that and I felt like I had been restricted for so long that I didn't know what a healthy balance looked like. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap. They have this idea that they need to be all or nothing and it needs to be perfect, quote unquote, in order to be able to see results. And it doesn't. Discipline is actually finding a balance where we get to have both. And I think we're living in a day and age where this is so blurry because we've got one end of the spectrum where it is that extreme and it's that all or nothing mindset, which is what a lot of people struggle with. And that's why they're not seeing results and they do end up in these continuous cycles and loops. Then we've got the other end of the spectrum. And on that end, we are really blasé, we're just chilling and very much comes into that like feminine empowerment. And it's like, oh, I'm just listening to my body and I just need some rest and the stars aren't aligned right now for me to be able to do that, and I'm feeling this kind of way, so I'm just gonna listen to the universe. And I've been at both spectrums. I have been on both spectrums. I went through such a disciplined era in my life that then I felt like last year I almost started slipping too far in the opposite direction. And only in the last 3 or so months, as I've spoken about on my podcast, I joined a new coaching community, and that's really genuinely changed my entire life, my business, my body, like everything. And since joining that community, I feel like I have really started to find that perfect level of discipline and implementing that back into my life and my day-to-day routine. And the results and rewards that I am receiving from having that discipline is insane. Absolutely worth it, and is just driving me to show up even more and even better. And I feel like I'm quantum leaping into these new identities and lifestyles at a faster rate than I could have ever imagined. And a lot of that comes down to this level of discipline that I have now accomplished. And I guess the big overarching theme of what I want to get across in this episode is, where are you lying to yourself? Where are you not telling yourself the full truth? Where are you letting little things slide and masking it and cock blocking yourself, if you will, as, oh, but I'm doing this because I'm listening to my body, or I don't want to be too extreme. I just need to live my life as well. I need to have balance. And there's all of these, 1,000 excuses under the sun. But where are you actually letting those type of excuses, if you will, hold you back? Because we can fall into this place of, oh, I don't want to be too masculine, and I need to be in my flow, and I need to listen to my body. But where do we draw the line? Because at the end of the day, if we want to do extraordinary things, if we want to see extraordinary results, we have to have some level of discipline implemented in our day-to-day life. So whether that means having a list of non-negotiables that every single day, this is what I get done, regardless of how I feel. And this is how I show up every single day, regardless of how I feel. For me, that is my step count. That is my absolute non-negotiable. I could be feeling like I am on death's bed and I will be out doing laps around the block until my steps are in. I do laps of my apartment, which is about 10 steps each direction, right? It's a tiny, in between like a 1-bedroom and a studio. So it's so small, but I will literally walk laps, 10 steps back and forth until I reach my steps at the end of the day, because that is one of my disciplines that I am sticking to, and I do have that level of discipline. And I think that example in particular is a really good example, because I think a lot of girls, women, men even, use many excuses on a day-to-day basis of why they can't get their steps in, and they see it as a point of it doesn't matter that much. But when we start treating so many areas of our lives that are contributing to whether or not we're going to reach our goals with that type of mindset, we are not going to get there. So if you have that attitude towards your step count goal, towards your water intake every day, maybe you said that you were going to journal every day and it ends up being 3 days a week instead of 7. But if you have that attitude towards all of these different aspects that are going to improve your life, they're simply not going to improve your life because you're not being disciplined enough in them. And I think this is where it's really important to find just a few strict disciplines that are going to edge you closer to your goals every single day, even if it's like 0.5%, and stick to them and show yourself that you are capable of having that level of discipline, regardless of what your life looks like, regardless of what the weather's doing, regardless of how you feel, where you're at in your cycle. And it's setting realistic expectations that some days, let's use the 10,000 steps as an example. Some days for me, getting 10,000 steps is a piece of cake. I'm going for a hot girl walk with my girlfriends. We're getting a coffee and I've got 10,000 steps before I know it. Other days, it requires a lot of effort. It means that I am driving to the gym for a second time in the day because I still haven't got my steps in, but it's raining outside. And that's the only way that I'm going to be able to get them in. It's little things like that where you're showing up and you're finding a way when there's 10,000 excuses and reasons that you could let it slide, but you don't. You have that level of discipline, clock in, and you're like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. And I really think that, we've really leaned out of that discipline era. And there's so many people out there, especially on social media, preaching this, be in your flow, be in your feminine state. And whilst, yes, I do agree in this wholeheartedly, 100%, it's like, okay, great, we can have a flow. We can be in our feminine. We should be in our feminine. We should have a nice, healthy balance of the two. Where are we not balanced? Because I think we are starting to create a warped idea of what a balanced masculine and feminine look like. And as I said earlier, if you are serious about doing something extraordinary, you want to really send things, you want extraordinary results in whatever aspect of your life it may be, what goals you're heading towards, you are going to have to implement a higher level of discipline. And yeah, it just comes back to what I was saying, is like, find things that you can create discipline around, that you can always have that discipline. So for me, it would be unrealistic to say that I'm going to work 60-hour weeks. A, because fuck that, I don't want to work a 60-hour week. B, because I don't have the capacity to work a 60-hour week. And C, I know that in my personal 28-day or however many day menstrual cycle, I ebb and flow in my energy levels. So I'm not going to set a goal that I'm not going to be able to achieve realistically. So I think finding that balance of, okay, what can be my disciplines? What can I ask of myself on a day-to-day basis to show up as the bare minimum, that some days is, yes, going to be a push, but equally, I know deep down I can make it happen. I know that I can do that with no excuses. And if I do have an excuse, it's probably not a good one. I really feel like I'm all over the place, guys. This episode's so I'm like, I know what I want to say, but I just don't know if I'm saying it. I think I'm going to keep it short and sweet. What I really want everyone to walk away from this episode is to question yourself. Like, ask yourself, where am I not showing up with the amount of discipline that deep down I know I could? Because I guarantee you are capable of so much more than you realize. And that might start with something small. It might start with just a step count. Then maybe after a month or two of doing that consistently, never missing a beat, we add a water intake in. And then we add tracking our food every day. Little things across time, that's what compounds. That's what gets us to where we need to be. And there's always going to be a reason not to do something. But if you truly want to make something work, I believe that you will. And finding discipline is something that should happen over time. I don't think it's an overnight flick of a switch. If you're trying to flick things overnight, that's what leads you into, or I can guarantee you're definitely the type of person who has an all or nothing mentality. And so what we want to do is we want to break away from the all or nothing without falling into the free for all flow, feminine, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like, because sometimes we don't get a choice. You don't have a say in just doing what you feel like. Like, you can absolutely do that by all means, but if that's what you want to do, you have to also accept that you're not going to be able to get as far as you are capable of getting. So finding that balance of not going to the all or nothing extreme, and also not sitting in, I'm just in my flow, I'm listening to the universe, I'm spiritually bypassing everything, and actually deciding what needs to be done and where do you need to stop lying to yourself. Because I honestly think at the end of the day, that's what it is. You know, deep down, if you are truly pushing yourself and living to your highest potential, or if you're not. If there is moments where you're negotiating with yourself on a day-to-day basis, I can guarantee you're not living at that potential. There's going to be days where shit should feel hard, where it should feel like it is almost freaking gonna break you. Like, you are on the verge of a meltdown and you still make shit happen. You still go get those 10,000 steps, baby girl. Those are the days where you are building up your resilience levels so that then when that same day and those same challenges face you in 3 months' time, that's not as much of a challenge as it was yesterday. And over time, implementing that discipline, having that discipline, and then pushing through the uncomfortable feelings, the really hard days, we are building up our resilience to what we are capable of withstanding over time. It's only going to build. It's only going to compound. We're going to be able to have a larger bandwidth. We're going to be able to take on more. We're going to be able to handle more. We're going to have a more relaxed nervous system. We're going to be able to hold more as a whole and therefore push ourselves further and see greater results. And at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is for. It's for my visionaries out there. It's for my girls that have huge dreams. Like, if you just want to work a 9 to 5 and live an average life and be okay in your body, that's fine, but this is probably not the podcast for you. This is probably not the episode for you. If you want to do amazing shit, if you want to take control of your life, you want to move from good to great, do extraordinary things and have extraordinary results, you need discipline and you need to start implementing that. You need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, in what areas of my life, my health, relationships, finances, self-respect, like all different areas of your life, like go through, rate your discipline levels. Like, where am I slacking off? Where could I be pushing harder? Where am I making excuses and negotiating with myself on a daily or weekly basis? What do I need to stop doing to get myself further, and go from there? But sit down and take the time to really audit yourself and the way that you're currently showing up, the way that you're acting, living, what your goals are. Are they aligned, or do you need to implement some more discipline? What is one thing you can start working on? One thing at a time. That's all I ask. And watch your life unfold before your eyes, honestly. I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place, but I know anyone that needed to hear this is going to listen to it and take away exactly what they needed. And I will chat to you girls in my next episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you don't already, make sure you drop me a follow, and please, please, please leave the show a rating or a review. It means so much to me. I'm just a little old 26-year-old girl in my apartment by myself here, wanting to make this podcast even greater than it already is. So I appreciate you. I love you. DM me on Instagram with any questions, any feedback. If you want to have a chat, my DMs are always open, and I'll see you in my next episode.